My dad was an engineer, a real numbers guy, an expert planner. He was also an epic road tripper, throw the kids in the car and go, no parts of the country untouched. And he was a terrible golfer. Sorry, Dad. He died 20 years ago. Ever since that day, I've had an itch I couldn't quite scratch, something I wanted to do to honor him, to remember him, even just to get to know him a little bit better. As I turn 50, I've decided to scratch that itch. I'm going to combine my 3 memories of my dad as a planner and a traveler and a golfer as I play 50 for Father, 50 courses in 50 states in 50 days. Dad died of a stroke with complications from type 2 diabetes. Too soon after his death, my 4-year-old son was diagnosed with type 1. For those deeply personal reasons, I'm dedicating 50 for Father as a fundraiser for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation.
I'm JDRF.
I am JDRF. I'm JDRF because...
I am JDRF.
Because... Type 1 diabetes is hard. I'm JDRF because I'm gonna beat this. I am JDRF because I want a cure.
I expect to face lightning strikes, extreme heat, and snowstorms. I'll go alone as a symbol for the struggle faced by those afflicted with diabetes, and I'll eat what I can keep cold in a cooler. Bottom line, this journey will be hard, but as my dad once told me, the easy thing isn't always the right thing. In fact, it rarely is. I'm not a doctor or scientist. I'm a son, and I'm a father.
With my dad by my side, with my dad by my side, got my dad by my side, with me.
Hi, my name's Pete Crozier, and thank you for inviting me to share my story today. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to say 4 words to you that are going to change your life. How's that for a tease? My son Gavin and I left Columbus on Saturday, May 25th, 2019, headed to Southport, North Carolina. Day 1 of 50 for Father would be on Memorial Day. From North Carolina, we drove south to Florida for 18 holes at Sawgrass, the legendary home of the Players' Championship. For the golfers listening, I was 4 over headed into the 17th, the Island Green. I hit 2 in the water. Thanks for asking. From Florida, we drove west through Georgia and Alabama. I highly recommend North River in Tuscaloosa, Alabama if you ever make your way there. My plan was to build in a few buffer days for weather and travel, but that meant I had to play 36 holes a day several times. My first 36-hole day was in Mississippi and Tennessee. The cool thing about that day is that I had an opening for a 4th in Tennessee. I was talking about my journey in the clubhouse in Mississippi when this guy Jay Newell heard my story, made a donation on the spot, and joined us in another state. We had a great round and made a new friend as we played TPC Southwind outside of Memphis. My son and I continued on through Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. Who knew the course that would have the most water in all 50 days would be in East Texas, a place called the Links at Land's End. That ended up being one of my favorite days because it was my last day with Gavin before I had to put him on a plane back to Columbus.
Welcome to day 10 of 50 for Father, where I'm playing 50 golf courses in 50 states in 50 days to raise money for diabetes research. You know, when your young child is diagnosed with diabetes, it's a whirlwind. You go from 0 to 60 in a second and a half. It becomes your new normal. And you get used to that. And then comes a time when they have to go to school, and they're out of your guidance for 6 or 7 hours in a day, and you wonder if your 6-year-old son can know his body well enough to take care of himself, and that becomes your new normal. And then it's sleepovers and 6th grade camp and things like that, and you're depending on the kindness of strangers and trained personnel and your own son to make good decisions about his body. Today is another step in that process, as we're at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport and Gavin's getting on a plane for the first time. We went a little bit out of our way to get him a non-stop flight home. We thought that was the best way for him to travel for the first time. Everybody here has been really super helpful, and I'm confident that he'll have a great day, and his mom will meet him at the other side when he lands in Columbus a couple hours from now. Thanks a lot. We'll check in a little bit later. We're playing in Tulsa this afternoon, so look for an update from there. Thank you very much. Today, don't think about me and my son. Think about all the parents who have to go through this kind of grind and worry. Today, as you're out there today, don't think of me and my son, but think of all the parents that have to go through this kind of worry and exhaustion and anxiety, worried about their child.
A buddy named Steve joined me in Tulsa, and we played and traveled through Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico. Our route in Colorado was at the Sanctuary, built and owned by the guy who started Remax. This course has no public play and no membership. Quite a business model, huh? It's only open to his family and friends and a few charity tournaments each week. Those charity tournaments need to earn at least $100,000 or they aren't invited back. So how did I get on this amazing course? I know a guy who knows a guy. Steve helped me drive to Scottsdale, where I met up with my brother. We were lucky to play True North together on our dad's birthday, a very special day. From there, my 2 oldest daughters, Sam and Maggie, joined me for an overnight trip at the Grand Canyon, then rounds in Utah and Nevada. My first day not playing golf turned out to be at a golf course, as Sam and Maggie joined me at a practice round of the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. A rainy, cloudy day led me to reflection.
So I'm on the 4th hole of Pebble Beach in honor of my son Gavin. Why the 4th hole? Because when Gavin was 4 years old, we had just moved to Columbus, Ohio, living in a house full of cardboard boxes. Things were stressful. It was the holiday season. Gavin wasn't feeling well, and I missed it. We got through Thanksgiving. Gavin was going to the bathroom more. He was really thirsty. I thought it was maybe just he couldn't verbalize the stress he was feeling because of the move, and I missed it. The first week of December, he got really sick. We thought it was the flu. And then he got better, and then he almost died. Gavin was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes a couple weeks before his 5th birthday. And I missed it. Because of my ignorance and indifference and kind of instructability, can't happen to me. Bad things happen to good people all the time. Innocent children get sick and die all the time, and it doesn't have to happen. There is enough money in the world to feed every child, cure every disease, champion every cause. If you're a millionaire, maybe one less yacht in 2019 and you save a village. If you're like me, kind of firmly in the middle class, how about one less coffee a week and donate $200 to a charity of your choice? If money's an issue, binge watch one less show and donate those 25 hours to an organization in your community that needs your help, because they do. Bad things happen to good people all the time. Innocent children get sick and die all the time, and they don't have to.
After a round in Northern California, I spent the day in San Francisco with my girls and then boarded a plane to Hawaii. I played 18 holes in Hawaii, took a red-eye to Alaska, played 18 holes in Alaska, took another red-eye to Portland, where I met my brother and daughters who had their own adventure as they drove the van through the redwoods and the Northern California and Oregon coast to meet me. After a private tour of the Nike campus from a sponsor and rounds in Oregon and Washington, for the first time in a month, I drove east. Joined by a college buddy named Joe, we played the amazing Coeur d'Alene Resort in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and its floating green.
Hi, my name is Joe Bonanno, and I'm joining Pete Crozier on his 50 for Father Juvenile Diabetes Reachers Fund fundraiser trip. This is day 24 in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Pete and I have been friends since college, so it's been great knowing him and golfing with him every summer, and this is going to be a special trip. I'll be playing with Pete for the next 5 days from here all the way through South Dakota. So I hope you guys check out the website. Please go on 50forfather.com and donate if possible. And here I got a little surprise for Pete. He said do something cool or whatever, so the little theme of the next segment, my segment, is coming right now. So hold on 1 second. Here's the theme for the next 5 days. So please, again, 50forfather.com and donate for Pedro and make all your wildest dreams come true.
As Joe said, he stuck with me for 5 days. We played in Montana, where it was snowing as we teed off, Wyoming, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The day in South Dakota was the second day on which I played 36 holes, a morning round in Sioux Falls and an afternoon round in Iowa. The next day was a quick dip into Minnesota, then south for a round at the beautiful Omaha Country Club, and then on to St. Louis to play 18 holes on the course where I grew up and learned the game from my father. 3 high school teammates joined me in St. Louis, a round filled with laughs, nostalgia, and embarrassing stories. A personal stop for me and an important one. From Missouri, I drove through the night to Wisconsin, then on to Illinois, my second home. Friends and family joined me in the clubhouse after a wonderful round at Harborside on the south side of Chicago. After a quick trip to Michigan, back south through Indiana and the northern tip of Kentucky, I was back home in Columbus on July 2nd for a round at the course in my backyard, the Worthington Hills Country Club. 3 friends joined me for the round, and the executive director of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, Mike Agee, came out to be my caddy. It was a great day, made even more special when my wife surprised me with a neighborhood get-together. From Ohio, my youngest daughter Tess joined me as we played the last of our 36-hole days, West Virginia and Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania round was at Latrobe Country Club. Golfers may recognize Latrobe as the home of Arnold Palmer. The course was nice, but the clubhouse, for a lover of golf like me, was off the charts, filled with stories and pictures of Palmer's history. After Latrobe, we headed south for rounds in Virginia and Maryland and our final day off in Washington, D.C. on July 4th. I was joined for the round in Virginia by long drive champion Josh Jackson. Check out his swing here on the practice range, and be sure to see his swing speed when he's done. FYI, Tiger topped the tour with a swing speed of 129 miles per hour that year. After a round in Delaware, I found myself at a unique 9-hole course in New Jersey with a New York skyline in the background. It was weird. The course was in an urban area of business parks and factories, but the design of the course with its high man-made rolling hills completely blocked out the noise and sights of the urban blight. It was pretty cool. It's also where parts of the first episode of The Sopranos was filmed. After New Jersey, Tess and I kept driving north for rounds in New York, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Belgrade Lakes in Belgrade, Maine should be a destination on every golfer's list. The view from the clubhouse is hundreds of miles in every direction, and the course is an absolute gem. If you look at the picture of the top left corner of the screen, that's 2 greens, the 19th and 18th hole, with about a 20-foot hill in between the greens. So as I was coming down 18, you had about 10 feet right of the pin before it sloped and your ball would roll 80 yards away down onto the 9th green. It was pretty cool. From Maine, we headed back south to meet my wife and son in Providence, Rhode Island. The next morning on the course in Rhode Island, I passed a personal milestone.
So out here on day 49 of 50 for Father at the Alpine Country Club in Cranston, Rhode Island. Anything is possible. I'm a big fat guy and I just crossed 500,000 steps in 50 days of golf in 50 states. Anything is possible. Gavin, I'm looking at you, my son. They'll find a cure for diabetes. Anything's possible. If I can walk 500,000 steps, anything is possible.
There was 1 day left, 1 course left. I drove north to Worcester, Massachusetts to play the course where my dad learned to play, back to where it all started, the Green Hill Golf Course. What took 50 days to play and 20 years to plan was finally coming to an end. I was fortunate to be joined by my brother and 2 cousins on this final emotional day. As we teed off in the morning, we still weren't quite to $50,000 donated yet.
Well, as I walk up the final fairway, 50 for Father, thinking back to a conversation I had with my dad. I was graduating from the University of Illinois, talking about finishing my education. He said, son, your education's never finished. If you stop learning, you stop growing. Talk to me about the challenges that you faced and what you've overcome and what you've learned and what you're excited to do next, because it's not over. And that's kind of what this feels like. People ask me, what are you going to do when it's over? As a parent of a young man with type 1 diabetes, it's never over until there's a cure. So I think this will just be the first thing that I do to raise money for JDRF to help find a cure for diabetes. Dad, thanks for the inspiration. And to my family and friends and total strangers, thanks for your support. It means the world. Thank you.
The final totals for 50 for Father were 4,116 shots, 11,199 miles driven, 514,894 steps taken, and over $62,000 raised for JDRF. All right, the top 3 funniest things that happened on my trip. Number 3, on the first day, on the first tee of the Founders Club in Southport, North Carolina, I sprayed myself with sunscreen and grabbed the face stick and was spraying it all my face and gave it to my son, and he said, Dad, that's lip balm. Of course it is. Sounds like something I'd do. Classic Pete. The second funniest thing that happened on the journey is in New York City with my daughter Tess. We're at Times Square at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon having a coffee at Starbucks, and we had a meeting at 4:30, and Tess said, are we going back to the hotel before the meeting, or are we just going to the next Starbucks? If you know me at all, the answer was B, the next Starbucks. And the number one funniest thing that happened on the trip, you know that awkward moment when you're traveling with a buddy and you're going to a hotel and you open the door and you're not sure if there's going to be 1 bed or 2 beds. My buddy Dom, who was with me as we traveled through the Midwest, said, Pete, I've been married for 15 years. I know how to sleep in a king bed and not touch somebody. So what did I learn? First, Slim Jims and squeezable applesauce do not a healthy diet make. Second, not all sand traps are made of sand. This is jet black slag in Old Works in Anaconda, Montana. Not all reasonable gas prices are reasonable. I paid $6.59 a gallon in California. And not all naked cowboys are naked. If you've been to Times Square, you know what I mean. Okay, seriously, so what did I learn? When I described 50 for Father to people, I often said that I wanted to do something for my dad. To honor him, to remember him, or even get to know him a little bit better 20 years after his death. Honor him? Check. He would have been proud that we were able to do some good in the world and raise over $60,000 to find a cure for diabetes. He'd get a kick out of the fact that we did it using golf, the thing that we shared in my youth, as a vehicle for change. Remember him? Check. Every day of the journey, I was talking about him to playing partners, my kids, and even local media. The 6 months leading up to the journey were especially emotional, as Dad was a planner, and I think he would have really enjoyed putting together the logistics of the journey. Getting to know him better? Unfortunately, no. Not without effort, it's just unknowable. He died 20 years ago, and our relationship was such that he was my dad and I was his son. I don't remember many conversations in which I really talked to my dad. And I'll never know what he felt or what he believed in, what brought him to tears or doubled him over in laughter, what scared him or brought him great joy. I truly believe I would have learned these things later. Our relationship would have evolved, but unfortunately my dad passed away when I was 29. I was robbed as our time as peers. For that reason, he remains a bullet point memory. Here's where he lived. Here's where he worked. He loved my mom. He loved his kids. He set a good example. My takeaway is that we need to share ourselves with others and allow them to share themselves with us. Especially share yourself with your kids. When they're really young, say under 10, yeah, they need you to be a parent, but in their teen years, if you've done your job, they need you less and less. This is the time you should share more and more. Laugh, play, talk, have difficult conversations about difficult topics. Watch the news together. Encourage discussion and debate and discovery. Don't talk at them, talk with them. Let them know that you don't know everything, but this is how you feel. Share. So what did I get out of this journey? I've rolled that around in my brain for several months. I keep going back to why I love sports. I don't watch sports for the championships or because I have an affinity for any particular team or player. I watch sports because on some random Thursday night, it happens. An arena freezes, a stadium stops, there's a collective hush of hope and prayer, and it happens. For me, it's Bryce Drew. In 1993, 13-seeded Valparaiso, coached by Bryce's dad Homer Drew, was playing 4th-seeded Ole Miss in March Madness. I, as they say, had no dog in the fight. Didn't matter to me which team won. With 2.5 seconds left, Valpo was down and had to go the length of the court to score. A guard did a ball fake to get his defender in the air, then heaved a long pass that a teammate caught at half court and pushed forward to a sprinting Bryce Drew, who caught the ball, took 2 steps and lunged as he tossed up a 3-pointer at the buzzer. Bryce Drew would go on to play in the NBA, coach at his alma mater, get married, and have a son. He would have amazing personal and professional achievements. But when his shot went through the hoop, pushing his school to the first ever win in the NCAA tourney, I would argue that Bryce Drew would never again feel like he did in that moment. Never again would the adrenaline in his body be pumping like it was in that moment. Never again would he be mobbed by his teammates like he was in that moment. Never again would the years of dedication and sacrifice come to a head as they did in that moment. Never again would a hug from his dad mean as much as it did in that moment. It was the greatest second of his life, and I was watching. That's why I love sports. For the people following my journey, there was no arena, no stadium, but there was a collective hush of hope and prayer as we were nearing the goal of raising $50,000 for JDRF. People were watching, and I felt them with me, rooting for me, encouraging me, supporting me. The number of calls and emails and texts I received was humbling. Just friends checking in, donors who I didn't know who said, "You got this." Especially that last week when my family, friends, and community started a social media storm sharing my story. Help my friend Pete. Help him reach his goal. He's so close to raising $50,000. I've had 2 wonderful careers, and I've achieved many things of which I'm proud. I have an amazing wife and 4 incredible kids. But on the morning of day 50, when I looked down at my phone and saw that we had raised $50,000, never have I felt the sense of community that I felt in that moment. Never have I felt so loved as I felt in that moment. Never have I felt like my dad was so proud of me as in that moment. It was the greatest second of my life. People were watching. At the beginning of this presentation, I promised you 4 words that were going to change your life. Let me preface those 4 words by saying the idea of 50 for Father was something that had been nagging at me for decades, an itch I couldn't quite scratch, something I wanted to do but kept putting off. Let's be honest, there was never going to be a right time for me to take 50 days off of work. Never was there going to be a right time for me to leave my family for 2 months, to put myself out there in front of the universe, to risk failure on a global scale. I had no idea if 50 Father was going to be successful. I had no idea if I could do this logistically, physically, emotionally, financially. But take a look. I'm still married, I still have a job, the house is still standing, the kids still love me, which leads me to this. It's time for you to do the thing that you've been putting off. Learn to play guitar, write the great American novel, go back to school, hike the Appalachian Trail, teach a cooking class, mentor a child, research your ancestry. Whatever the thing is, do it. My God, come up with a plan and do it. I had my chance. Here comes the 4 words. Now it's your turn. Considering the state of the world that we're in right now with COVID, 4 other words might be, before it's too late.